Steve?
Good, thanks. What are your, now that we have a framework for the season, what are your hopes and expectations about possibly seeing Zdeno Chara in a Bruins uniform this season?
Well, we still have to flush that out. I think Z was waiting to see what the schedule looked like, how it may impact his decision. So, we're still flushing that out.
What kind of role would you see him playing?
For me, it's tough to say. We do want to take a look at some of these young left shot Ds that we have in our system to see if they can step up, or is it the time for them to step up and see where they're at in their development. We certainly respect Zdeno and everything he's done for the organization and what he's accomplished as a player and what he's done both on and off the ice here in Boston. So, it's really just a matter of, what his desire is and how the coaching staff and we feel, what our lineup should look like or could look like, depending on, the development of some of these young guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. We'll go next to Dan Roach. Matt Porter, you're on deck. Go ahead, Dan.
Hi, Cam. Happy holidays. Hope you're well.
Thanks. Same to you, Dan.
Thank you. Just how excited are you, or happy to have a date, and looking forward to this upcoming season? And maybe a second part of that question is, have you been in contact with the governor or Mayor Walsh as far as the possibility as you go along here of getting fans back into the seats at the Garden as well?
Well, yeah, it's nice to answer the first part. It's great to have a date set, because the suspended animation was killing us. Not knowing, not understanding if we are going to play, if we are playing, when are we going to play. Obviously, as far as fans in the building, that's going to be dependent upon state and city regulations and guidelines. I know that the staff here at the Garden has done a lot of work behind the scenes to make it as fan-friendly as possible, as safe as possible when we are allowed to have fans in here, to make sure that, they've gone through all the protocols. So the safety is obviously the utmost important for us. So a lot of work's been done. So when we do get the green light to have fans in the building, everybody should be comfortable to come in and watch our games being played live.
Thanks, Dan. We'll go next to Matt Porter. Conor Ryan, you'll be next. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, Cam, hope you're well. Nice to be chatting hockey with you again.
Yeah, right. Thanks.
Couple rapid fire ones, if I could. One, are players at Warrior skating now?
Yeah, we've had some players that have been in town that have been on the ice, obviously following the protocols that we did, similar to the last, restart. More and more players are starting to trickle in. Everybody wants to get in town, make sure that they follow the proper quarantine issues and guidelines, and get on the ice when camp is supposed to start.
Okay. Is it your understanding any players may opt out?
I haven't heard any of that yet. No.
Okay. And as far as camp this year, it will be a short camp, no exhibition games. Obviously, normally you'd get a long look at some of the younger guys, that you may want to integrate throughout the year. How do you approach that this year, whether it's changing your practice plan or, just kind of having an understanding that, they'll have to get work done on the taxi squad? What is your approach, given the short camp and short season with younger players?
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge for everybody. Everybody's got the same camp date. So it's, 9 days or 10 days is certainly not what we're used to, the coaching staff's used to, but the coaches have been preparing for a short camp for a while now. I think we have some benefit of the taxi squad that we had in the bubble, really see what those kids were all about and how they were approaching it. It's not easy being on a taxi squad, but my guess is you're going to see a lot of players coming in and out of lineups across the league based on, what we see now with, positive tests throughout the globe. So we just have to be as careful as possible. And, hopefully these guys are they should be ready to go. Camp's going to be quick, but I think for the most part, a lot of these guys have been working out pretty hard.
Great. Happy holidays.
Thanks. You too.
Go next to Conor Ryan. Go ahead, Conor. Mick, you're on deck.
Hey, Cam. It was reported a few weeks ago that the NHL was exploring the possibility of playing some outdoor games early this season if they got approval. Is that an option that the Bruins are still realistically exploring this year, or is the focus more on just staying with the Garden?
Yeah, we looked at that. It really, unless you can get a certain number of fans in the building, it didn't really seem to make sense financially. It's a big undertaking putting in, getting the system outdoors to play on. So we looked at it hard, but it looked like it was the best course for us to stick playing at the TD Garden for now.
Okay, thanks.
We'll go next to Mick Colagio. After Mick, we'll go to Jimmy Murphy. Go ahead, Mick. Let's go to Jimmy Murphy. Go ahead, Mick. Go ahead.
No, okay.
Good.
Sorry about that. I had to do this twice. So the shortened schedule, and the Bruins seem to be going into a season right now where there's going to be a lot of shuffling thanks to injuries as well. And things would ideally be conducted over the course of a long season, and hopefully like you enjoyed last year when you have the luxury of fact finding. This situation looks to me like it's going to be pressure packed. Where is the pressure most? Obviously goaltending. Is there going to be a short leash for wingers seeing opportunities? Because in this situation, the start just seems so important.
Yeah, the start's like every year, the start's very important. As you know, we've had a couple players had some off-season surgeries that are, they're on track and they're coming back, but they might miss a little time. I don't know if Brad's maybe ahead of, I don't want to say ahead of schedule, but ahead of where Pastrnak is. But yeah, the start's going to be extremely important as it is every year, Mick. I mean, it's something that we look at going into every season. So, this is really no different. Goaltending is going to be key, just as special teams are going to be key, and coming out of the gate strong is going to be important for us.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mick. We'll go next to Jimmy Murphy.
Right. Hey, Cam, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Happy holidays.
Thanks, you too.
Just wondering, you look back to when you spoke to us right after the season ended, you kind of pinpointed some things that you'd like to address via trade or free agency. And I'm just wondering now, do you feel you've been able to address that? Are you comfortable with where the team is right now? Or would you like to explore free agency or the trade market a little more in the coming weeks?
Well, I think now that everybody's kind of seen what the schedule is and when the start is, things may pick up a little bit. Some teams are still a little bit pushed up against the cap that probably have to do something. There was no real rush. I don't think they had a feeling like they had to do anything anytime soon. But now, when we have an actual start date, things may change. I still think we'd like to still explore our back end a little bit, even though we feel we got some guys that can step in. It's just a matter of the experience piece that everybody likes, but you don't get experience until you play. But I think you're never really satisfied with your lineup. So I mean, I'm sure Don is still looking at potentially tweaking or adding, but we'll see. We'll see what happens the next couple of weeks here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy. We'll go next to Fluto Shinzawa, followed by Emily Benjamin. Go ahead, Fluto.
For season ticket holders, whether it's for later this year, hopefully, or maybe 21, 22, what are the options that they have right now?
In what regard?
Well, do they have to make commitments for later this year, for next year? What are, can they just sit back?
Well, we've given our season ticket holders some options. They could leave their money on hand and get interest and have flat pricing for next year. They could request a refund for their tickets. So it's we've given them options to decide what works for them and what makes sense for them.
Thank you, Fluto. We'll go next to Emily Benjamin.
Hey, Cam, I just wanted to double check on Pastrnak and Marchand. Do you have dates when you expect them to be available? And are there any other injury concerns with anyone that haven't popped up yet, or that we haven't reported on yet?
Yeah, no other injury concerns right now, as far as I know. And as far as hard dates, it's hard to put a hard date on those guys. Brad, I know, has been on the ice a couple times, which is a good sign. David recently got back into town and will continue his rehab. I'm sure, we can get you some dates as things will progress here. But right now, I don't really have any hard dates for you.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks, Emily. We'll go next to Kevin Dupont, followed by Joe Haggerty. Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, thanks. I've got a general question on the salary cap, but before that, Cam, you brought up that there have been changes made at the Garden, physical changes when fans start coming in. Can you give us a little more detail on that? Is that sort of plexiglass stations, wash stands? What does that amount to?
Excuse me. Yeah, good question, Kevin. You touched on a couple of things. It's really entering the building. How to enter the building 6 feet apart. How to go up escalators 6 feet apart. Where do the fans sit, depending on if it's a family. Restrooms certainly outfitted for protection. Same with ordering concessions. It's not standing up there waiting in line. It's ordering online, and then you're told where to go pick it up. So it's really everything you can think of to help protect the fans once they're in the buildings.
And in that context, could you envision who knows how all of this unfolds, but is your aim this year, or could you envision a full house, or is that just not on the landscape?
Well, we're certainly hoping for a full house at some point this year, Kevin. I mean, when that is, I don't know. Is it going to be in May, June, July? It's hard to say. We're going to get fans in the building in some point in January. I'm not sure. February. It's really it's out of our control. But we have made plans for no fans, a third fans, half fans, 3/4, and then a full house.
Okay, and back to my original cap question here. Donnie's sort of procedure since he took the job is always to have $3 or $4 million, maybe a little less in elbow room going into the season. You've still got the Z thing to deal with or decide upon. Is that going to be the approach here again? Keep $2 or $3 million under the cap to start?
Well, I mean, if something makes sense for us, we've always had the right to spend up to the cap. It's just, we do like to have a little wiggle room, especially, as you're tracking towards the trade deadline. You'd like to have as much space as possible, depending on what may be available for you. Then this year is going to be a little different too with the taxi squad. Those players will not be on your cap until you need to put them in your lineup. So, you just have to really be really careful with your cap number going into this season, probably more so than other seasons.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dupes. Before we go to Joe Haggerty, just a reminder to media, if you no longer have a question, you can go ahead and put your hand down. We have time for a couple more. We'll go with Joe Haggerty. Go ahead, Joe.
Hey, Cam, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Joe.
Just as far as clarification on Chara goes, I know you mentioned the young left shot Ds you want to look at, and I think there's already 7 or 8 defensemen that are signed to NHL contracts. I mean, is there definitively a roster spot for Zdeno if he wants to play, or is there some question if there's a spot for him?
Well, I think it really depends on how he wants, what he feels he can do and help us, and we have to feel the same way. How that looks, is that something that he'd be comfortable with? How we maybe envision it looking compared to maybe how he feels it may look. I mean, this is a really difficult time for anybody that is going to come off a long break and have a short training camp and jump right into a compressed schedule with a number of back-to-backs and I think 116 days, I believe, to play 56 games. So there's a lot of factors in play about what makes sense for us and what makes sense for Zdeno.
Thanks, Cam.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe. We'll go back to Steve Conroy for the final question. Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, you got me?
Yep.
Okay. Cam, just want to get your thoughts on this division that you're in for this year. It's going to be strange not seeing Montreal or Toronto, but where do you think you can build rivalries? Obviously, there's going to be some hatred somewhere playing teams eight times in a year.
Yeah, I think, and I don't think it won't take long to get those rivalries built up. I mean, obviously, there's history between Boston and the Rangers for years. When they play here, we play there. There's a lot of fans from both teams. I think the recent history we've had with Philly in the playoffs, that'll spark some rivalry. I mean, playing these teams that many times, guys will be sick of each other in a hurry.